March 15th, 1848. I stand on the deck of HMS Terror, watching my breath turn to ice crystals in the bitter Arctic air. The ship groans beneath my feet like a dying animal. 8 months. 8 months we've been trapped in this frozen hell. I'm Lieutenant James Morrison, navigator of this cursed expedition. My hands shake as I write these words, though I tell myself it's just the cold. The ice stretches endlessly in every direction, white as bone, silent as death. Captain Franklin says we're making history. I say we're making graves. The smell of fear mingles with the stench of unwashed bodies below deck. 40 souls aboard this vessel, and every one of them looks at me with the same question in their eyes. When do we go home? I don't have an answer. The ice doesn't care about our schedules. My compass spins uselessly in my trembling fingers. North means nothing here. Nothing means anything here, except survival. The wind howls through the rigging like the voices of drowned sailors. Sometimes I wonder if they're trying to warn us about something. The crew's morale crumbles like old bread. Yesterday, Seaman Crawford asked me if I thought God had forgotten about us. I told him no, but the lie tasted bitter on my frozen lips. If God is watching, he's not helping. The mess hall stinks of rotten meat and desperation tonight. I watch Crawford during evening rations, and something's wrong. His hands shake so violently he can barely hold his spoon. The metal clanks against his teeth as he tries to eat the canned beef. "Crawford," I call out. "You all right, lad?" He looks at me with wild eyes. "Can't you hear them, Lieutenant? The voices in the walls. They're whispering about us." I listen. All I hear is the ship creaking in the ice. Dr. Hartwell examines Crawford later, finds nothing wrong, but I see the doctor's hands shaking too as he writes his notes. More men show the same symptoms over the next few days. Sergeant Mills, our most reliable Marine, nearly puts his bayonet through Cook Peterson's throat over imagined insults about his food portions. The man who once marched with Wellington now trembles like a scared child. I document everything in my journal by candlelight. The tremors, the paranoia, the way they stare at nothing for hours, then suddenly explode into rage. Military discipline means nothing when your mind is at war with itself. Captain Franklin summons me to his quarters 3 days later. His face is gaunt, his beard white with frost and fear. The cabin smells of sweat and something else, something rotting. "Morrison," he whispers, glancing at the door, "I need you to keep detailed records of everything. Everything. If something happens to me." "Sir?" "Promise me, Lieutenant. Someone needs to remember. Someone needs to tell the truth about what happened here." I promise, though I don't understand why my words taste like copper when I speak them. The captain's eyes dart to the shadows in the corners of his cabin. What is he seeing that I'm not? That night, I lie in my hammock, listening to the ice press against our hull. The sound is rhythmic, almost like breathing, like something alive is wrapped around our ship, squeezing slowly, waiting. The voices Crawford mentioned, I think I hear them too now. Whispers in the walls, speaking words I can't quite make out. But I know they're talking about us, about what we're going to become. I wake to screaming. Not the screaming of pain or fear, but of madness. Captain Franklin's voice echoes through the ship's corridors, shouting orders at empty air. "Ready the cannons! The ice bears are coming! Can't you see them?" I find him in his cabin, pointing frantically at bare walls. His uniform is torn, his hair wild. When he sees me, He grabs my shoulders with fingers that feel like frozen claws. Morrison, thank God. The ice is speaking to me. It knows my father's voice. His breath smells wrong, metallic, like old pennies. His eyes are bloodshot, the pupils different sizes. I've seen head injuries before, but this is something else. Sir, there's no one there. You need rest. He laughs, a sound like breaking glass. Rest? The ice never rests. It's been waiting for us, Morrison, waiting since the world began. Dr. Hartwell arrives, takes one look at the captain and goes pale. The examination reveals disturbing changes. Swollen gums that bleed at the slightest touch, skin like old parchment, hands that won't stop shaking. His pulse is erratic. Hartwell whispers, "And look at this." He shows me the captain's fingernails. Black lines run through them like tiny roads to nowhere. For the next hour, Franklin alternates between violent agitation and complete stillness. He stares at the wall, unblinking, then suddenly shouts warnings about the hungry ice and the feast that's coming. Command falls to me now. 39 men look to me for leadership, while our world literally freezes around us. The weight of it presses on my chest, like the ice presses on our ship. Slow, constant, crushing. But the worst part is the doubt creeping into my mind. What if the captain isn't mad? What if he's seeing something we can't? The way he looks at me sometimes, like he knows something terrible about my future. Cook Peterson's hands shake as he shows me our remaining supplies. Despite our desperate situation, the pantry is still well stocked with canned meat and vegetables. But the men refuse to eat. They say it tastes wrong, sir, Peterson explains, his voice barely above a whisper. Claims I'm poisoning them. Yesterday, Mills threatened to gut me if I served him again. I inspect the tins myself. They look normal, sealed properly, no obvious damage. But when I taste a spoonful of the beef, there's an odd metallic flavor that coats my tongue like oil. It lingers long after I swallow. This is normal for preserved food on long voyages, Peterson insists, but his eyes won't meet mine. Dr. Hartwell's investigation changes everything. I find him hunched over his microscope in the medical bay, his face grave. Sample containers line his desk, filled with bits of our food supplies. Morrison, look at this. He gestures to the microscope. Look and tell me what you see. Through the lens, I observe fragments of canned meat, but coating everything is a fine, silvery substance that gleams like scales. It's beautiful and wrong at the same time. What is it? Metal. Specifically, I believe it's lead. The tins are lined with it, and it's leaching into our food. We've been consuming poison with every meal. The words hit me like a physical blow. Poison. We've been poisoning ourselves slowly, steadily, for months. No wonder the men are going mad. No wonder Captain Franklin sees things that aren't there. How long? I ask. Since we left England. Maybe longer. Hartwell's voice is barely audible. Morrison, lead poisoning causes everything we've been witnessing. The tremors, the paranoia, the violent outbursts. And it gets worse, much worse. I stare at the samples, trying to process the horror. We came here to map the unknown. Instead, we've mapped our own destruction. Every meal has been a step closer to madness. That night, I can taste the metal in my mouth, even though I haven't eaten. It's in my saliva, my blood, probably my brain. The poison has made itself at home in my body. I write in my journal until my hand cramps. We are not just trapped by ice. We are trapped by our own sustenance. The very food that keeps us alive is killing us by degrees. The irony is almost laughable. Almost. Crawford no longer looks human. I watch from my barricaded quarters as he crawls through the corridor on all fours, gnawing on his own forearm. His teeth have left deep marks in the frozen flesh, but he doesn't seem to feel pain. His movements are wrong, jerky, like a broken puppet. "Crawford," I call through the door. "Stop!" He turns toward my voice, and I see his eyes, empty, hungry. The man I knew is gone, replaced by something that only wants to feed. The affected crew members move in groups now. They communicate through grunts and clicking sounds that barely resemble human speech. I count 7 of them, maybe 8. They hunt through the ship like a pack, searching for something, for someone. Dr. Hartwell huddles beside me with the few remaining rational men, Peterson, Seaman Walsh, and gunner's mate Davies. We listen to the sounds echoing through the bulkheads, scraping, gnawing, and something that might be cackling laughter. "They're not men anymore," Hartwell whispers. His medical bag trembles in his lap. The lead has destroyed their higher brain functions. They're operating on pure animal instinct now. Through the keyhole, I watch Sergeant Mills drag something behind him. In the dim light, it takes me a moment to realize it's a human leg. The boot still attached tells me it belonged to Johnson, the ship's carpenter. Mills tears at the frozen meat with his teeth, making satisfied grunting sounds. I find Captain Franklin's final log entries scattered across his cabin floor. The handwriting deteriorates from page to page, starting neat and military, ending as wild scratches that barely form words. Day 67. The ice speaks to me in Father's voice. It tells me secrets about the eternal voyage. Day 73. Dreams of consumption. Sweet flesh. Brothers feeding brothers. The circle completes itself. Day 80. They offer salvation through the feast. I see now. We are the harvest the ice has been waiting for. The final entry is written in what looks like blood. The ice demands sacrifice. We shall feed it our brothers. I hear scratching at my door, fingernails against wood, patient and persistent. They know I'm in here. They can smell the life in me, the warmth. Soon they'll find a way inside. Hartwell shows me his discovery from the medical bay. Bone fragments mixed with food scraps. Teeth marks on what were clearly human ribs. The evidence of cannibalism is undeniable. My former brothers in arms have become something that feeds on flesh. How long before we're like them? I ask. Hartwell looks at his own shaking hands. I can feel it starting in my fingers. The numbness, the hunger. Maybe hours, maybe days. The scratching at the door grows more insistent. Soon, the decision comes at dawn, though dawn means little in this endless Arctic night. Dr. Hartwell makes a discovery that changes everything. He finds human bones in the galley, gnawed clean and cracked open for marrow. Some still have strips of uniform attached. "They're eating the dead," he tells me, his voice flat with horror. "But Morrison, some of these wounds, they're from before death." I understand, they're not just eating corpses, they're making corpses to eat. Loading a sled with whatever supplies we can carry feels like preparing for our own funeral. Blankets, hardtack, medical supplies, pathetic offerings against the Arctic wilderness. But staying means joining them in their feast. The few of us left, myself, Hartwell, Peterson, Walsh, and Davies, prepare to abandon HMS Terror. The ship that was supposed to carry us to glory will now be our tomb. As we step onto the ice, I look back one final time. Through the portholes, I see shapes moving in the flickering light. Dark silhouettes that might once have been Royal Navy sailors. They watch us leave with hungry eyes. "Sir," Peterson whispers, "they're following." He's right. The abandoned crew emerges from the ship like insects from a rotted log. They move with purpose, but without humanity, dragging something behind them. As my eyes adjust to the eternal twilight, I see what it is: a sled loaded with bodies. They're bringing their larder with them. The procession across the ice is a nightmare made real. 14 men who once served queen and country, now reduced to something that walks upright but isn't human. They follow our trail with the patience of predators, stopping occasionally to feed from their mobile butcher shop. Hartwell collapses after the first mile. Blood foams from his mouth as he convulses in the snow, his body rejecting the poison that's been building in his system for months. I try to help him to his feet, but he pushes me away. "Leave me," he gasps. I can feel it starting. The hunger. Leave me before I become like them. But I can't. I won't. I drag him onto our sled, even as the others urge me to hurry. Behind us, the cannibals grow closer. I can hear their guttural calls echoing across the ice. That night, we make camp in the lee of an ice ridge. The wind cuts through our blankets like knives, but we don't dare light a fire. Light means attention. Attention means death, or worse. I write in my journal by starlight. We have become prey in a world where the predators wear human faces. The ice doesn't care about our rank or our service record. It only cares that we taste like meat. Hartwell dies during the night. I wake to find him cold and still, but his face is peaceful. He's escaped what's coming for the rest of us. I envy him. Day 3 on the ice, and I know I'm becoming one of them. The tremors in my hands spread up my arms like climbing frost. The metallic taste never leaves my mouth now. It's become the flavor of my own saliva, my own blood. Peterson notices it first, surprised. "Sir, your eyes, they're different." I see my reflection in the blade of my knife. My pupils are enormous black pools, and there's something wrong with the way they focus. The world looks different too, sharper in some ways, blurred in others. Colors seem wrong, like I'm seeing through water. The hunger hits me like a physical blow. Not the normal hunger of an empty stomach, but something deeper, something that gnaws at my bones and whispers terrible suggestions. When I look at Walsh, I don't see a fellow sailor. I see meat. God help me, I see meat. Dr. Hartwell's corpse lies frozen beside our pitiful fire. The rational part of my mind, the part that's still Lieutenant James Morrison of Her Majesty's Royal Navy, knows I should bury him, give him proper respects. But the growing thing inside my skull has other ideas. The smell of his flesh makes my mouth water. I wake during our 4th night to find myself crouched over Hartwell's body, gnawing on his frozen thumb. The taste is sublime, sweet and metallic like communion wine mixed with copper pennies. I've bitten through skin and muscle to reach the bone. "Morrison!" Peterson's voice cuts through my feeding frenzy. I look up at him, Hartwell's blood freezing on my chin. The horror in Peterson's eyes should shame me, but all I feel is annoyance that he's interrupted my meal. "Stay back," I tell him, though the words come out wrong, slurred and growling. "He's mine." Davies raises his rifle, pleading, "Sir, please, you're sick. You need help." "Help." I laugh, and the sound is nothing human should make. Help won't cure what's inside me now. The lead has rewired my brain, turned me into something that thinks flesh is food and friends are ingredients. But somewhere buried deep, Lieutenant Morrison still exists. He's screaming at me to stop, to remember who I am, to die with honor rather than live as a monster. I try to listen to him, but the hunger is so much louder. I hear them before I see them, the clicking, grunting sounds of the pack. They found us. 14 shapes emerge from the darkness, moving with predatory grace across the ice. My former crew, transformed into something between men and beasts. Captain Franklin leads them, though he's barely recognizable. His face is...
"No," I whisper. "I won't."
Franklin's smile widens. "Then you'll be food instead of family." They circle us like wolves. Walsh fires his rifle, catches one of them in the chest, but the creature barely staggers. They don't feel pain anymore. They only feel hunger. Peterson tries to run. They take him down in seconds, their teeth tearing through his throat before his screams can fully form. Davy swings his bayonet like a club, fighting with the desperate fury of the doomed. He manages to wound 2 of them before they overwhelm him. I watch my men die, and I feel nothing but appetite. The pack turns to me last. Franklin approaches slowly, savoring the moment. In his hands he carries a metal pot, the same one we use to cook our meals aboard Terror. It's stained with things I don't want to identify. Your choice, Morrison. Feed with us, or feed us. I look at what remains of my humanity, weigh it against the gnawing hunger in my bones. The lead has won. I can feel the last threads of my sanity snapping like frozen rope. I drop my rifle. Franklin nods approvingly and hands me the pot. Inside, I see a human skull, cracked open like an egg. The brain tissue is frozen but still pink, still fresh. "Welcome to the family," Franklin says. I raise the pot to my lips and drink deeply. The taste is everything the hunger promised. Rich, satisfying, perfect. As the warm flesh slides down my throat, I feel Lieutenant James Morrison die at last. The thing that used to be him smiles with bloody teeth and asks for seconds. I write these final words with hands that barely remember how to hold a pen. The others lie around me in the snow, their bodies finally still after days of writhing in the cold. One by one, they've succumbed to the poison that courses through our veins like liquid fire. But I remain somehow, the last witness to our transformation from men to monsters. My fingers are black with frostbite. My vision comes and goes like a failing candle. The hunger has faded now, replaced by a different kind of emptiness. The kind that can never be filled, no matter how much flesh passes through your teeth. I taste blood with every breath, not from injury, but from the corruption that's eaten through my body from the inside out. The lead has had its way with us completely, rewiring our brains, turning us into something that thinks human flesh is sustenance and brotherhood means nothing. The memories of what we did haunt what's left of my mind. Captain Franklin's final feast, where he cracked open Davy's skull like a walnut and offered me the contents like communion wine. The way Peterson screamed as we carved strips of meat from his living body. The terrible satisfaction I felt as warm blood ran down my chin. We crossed lines that men should never cross. We became things that should never exist. Through the haze of pain and madness, I see them in the distance, the native hunters moving carefully across the ice toward our camp. They've been watching us, I realize, witnessing our descent from civilization to something far worse. Their faces are painted with expressions of horror and disgust, but also something else, pity. They carry spears and knives, but they won't need them. We're already dead, just too stubborn to stop breathing. I hope they'll understand what we became, that we weren't always monsters, that we had families, dreams, honor, before the poison, before the hunger, before the ice claimed us for its own dark purposes. My wife, Margaret, does she still wait for me in Portsmouth? Does she tell our children that Papa is exploring new lands? I pray she never learns the truth. I pray she remembers me as the man who left, not the thing that's dying in this frozen wasteland. God, forgive us for what we did, for what we ate, for the lines we crossed in the name of survival. We thought we were explorers, mapping new territories for queen and country. Instead, we mapped the depths of human depravity. The pen grows heavy in my numb fingers. Each word is a struggle now, as if the ice itself resists my attempts to record the truth. Darkness creeps in from the edges of my vision, and I welcome it. Better to die as Morrison than live as the thing I've become. Let the ice have us. Let it bury our sins beneath snow and silence. Let the world remember HMS Terror as a brave expedition that simply vanished, rather than the truth, that we devoured each other like animals in the dark. The native hunters are closer now. One of them points at me, says something to his companions in their strange tongue. They'll find these pages preserved in the ice. Maybe they'll understand. Maybe they'll warn others. Or maybe the ice will keep our secrets forever. I can live with either choice. I can't live with what I've become. The cold takes me at last. I welcome it like an old friend. Dr. Sarah Chen sets down the leather-bound journal, her hands trembling slightly. The pages, perfectly preserved by 176 years of Arctic ice, have yielded their secrets at last. Morrison's final entries read like fiction, but the physical evidence supports every horrifying detail. The laboratory around her hums with modern equipment, but the samples on her desk tell an ancient story. Bone fragments bearing teeth marks that match human dental patterns, corroded tin cans lined with lead solder, the same type that poisoned Napoleon's army decades earlier. And most disturbing of all, traces of human tissue still clinging to the metal cookware recovered from the site. Tissue that DNA analysis confirmed belonged to multiple individuals. The carbon dating was conclusive. The tissue samples were 176 years old, yet preserved in the permafrost as if frozen yesterday. She looks across the lab at the current supplies, military rations issued to Arctic research teams stationed throughout the region. The same teams that have been reporting unusual incidents lately. Aggressive behavior among personnel, unexplained paranoia, violence among crew members isolated for months in the frozen wilderness. 3 stations have gone silent in the past month. Chen's colleague, Dr. Marcus Webb, enters the lab carrying the latest batch of food samples. His face is pale, his hands shaking as he sets down the testing materials. The metallurgy report came back, he says, avoiding her eyes. You're not going to like it. She already knows. The metallic taste that's been haunting her mouth for the past week isn't her imagination. The tremor in her hands isn't from cold. The strange dreams about consumption, about the sweet taste of forbidden meat, aren't stress-related. History is repeating itself. The lead content in our rations is 3 times higher than safety standards, Webb continues. The manufacturing plant that produces them is the same company that's been supplying Arctic operations for the past 5 years. They've been using the same lead-based solder techniques that were discontinued in the 19th century. Chen stares at the report, the numbers blurring as her vision wavers. She can feel the poison working its way through her system, rewiring her brain chemistry, preparing her for the hunger that's coming. The journal lies open to Morrison's final warning, written in his deteriorating script. The ice remembers, the hunger spreads. Beware the gifts of civilization that corrupt the soul. Chen tries to seal the samples with increasingly unsteady hands, but it may already be too late. The poison is patient. The hunger is eternal. And somewhere in the Arctic darkness, the ice waits for its next harvest. She reaches for her radio to warn the other stations, but pauses when she hears Webb behind her. He's making strange sounds, clicking noises, guttural grunts that barely sound human.
When she turns, his eyes are different, vacant, hungry.
Control, this is Research Station Alpha, she says into the radio, her voice sounding wrong even to her own ears. We're going to need more food up here, much more food. Through the lab window, she sees the aurora borealis dancing across the sky like the laughter of ancient spirits. The ice remembers everything, and it's hungry for more. What would you do if you discovered your survival supplies were slowly driving you insane? Have you ever been isolated so long that reality itself became questionable? Share your thoughts below, but check your rations first. Don't forget to subscribe for more declassified military encounters that prove some hungers are never satisfied.